So what we will do, we will talk about this, the harlot, the things that the harlot was able to do, and then the young man that's involved as they talk through this lesson. So in this lesson, the father implores the son to pay attention and heed what he has been taught so that he may avoid the dangers he is facing. So we'll start here in verse 1 and go through verse 1 through 5. He said, "My son, keep my words and treasure my commandments within mine for you. Keep my commands and live, and my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them to your fingers, write them on the tablets of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, that they may keep you from an adulteress, from the foreigners who flatters with her words." So the reason, right, the reason for following these teachings carefully is to give protection from the wiles of the loose woman. Okay? From the wiles of the loose woman. She is called an adulteress and a wayward wife who has seductive words. In Proverbs 7:23, this is Solomon's observation of a young man who is seduced because he did not listen to wise counsel and so did not avoid the harlot and was not prepared to resist her advances. Okay? The narrative unfolds with the observation of an unwary youth strolling along the streets at night. So if we take a look in Proverbs 7:9 through 6, it said, "At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple. I noticed among the young men a youth who had no sense." A youth with no sense. Okay, that kind of sums up that pretty good for the most part. Okay. So when I looked down, I saw him amongst the young. I noticed him young amongst men, a young who had no sense, which is a youth lacking of heart, one void of common sense or understanding. He is young, inexperienced, and featherbrained. Sound like a young teenager, right? That's kind of what it sounds like. In Proverbs 8, it said, he was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house. Now, that's an interesting thing, if he was doing that. Right? He's walking down the street, going down to the corner near her house. Now, in this, I had a question. Is the walk that he's taking, is he's taking that down the street near her house intentionally? Is that an intentional walk that he's taking? Because it says that he's walking. Is the walk takes him down the street near her house intentional? So there's some things in this, as we go through this, that kind of sounds like, well, did this kid kind of know what was going on here at all? So in verse 10, the narrative next indicates that the seductress who comes out to meet the innocent youth, she is dressed like a prostitute and has crafty intent. Right? So she's setting things up. She's come out of her house, she's all dressed as a prostitute with this crafty intent for this. When we get into verse 11 and 12, the text further describes this wayward woman as a loud and defiant with a roving desire. She lurks at every street corner, waiting for the gullible young man to pass her way, right? So part of this almost hints a little bit towards, was she looking for him specifically or was just anyone? Because two pieces of this kind of struck out to me as I started going through this. And there's some things she said as she went through this about him, right? She said she had carefully calculated the step to seduce and ensnare the inexperienced youth. She had calculated this. First, she boldly grabs him and kisses him, as it says in Proverbs 7:13. So there's almost something here that almost kind of hints two things. One, she was looking out for him. Two, he intentionally, to a degree, went down the street towards her house. Was this something that they kind of been, she had seen him and he had seen her, and he was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll go down this way. Was that something that could have been happening here? So this is followed by her flattering invitation in which she explains that she has fellowship offerings at home and came out especially looking for him. She came out looking especially for him. Again, kind of get this picture that says, okay, I've been looking out from my house, from my lofty look, and I've seen this, and I've seen this young man at some point, and he's probably spotted up and noticed her and go like, oh, I wonder, and heard things. And did he just kind of just wander down there just so he could be snared up? No. So in verse 7:15, he says, so I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you. Almost an intent that she already knew he was. All right. So was she looking just for anyone, or was she looking for this young man specifically? It sounded like she was looking for him specifically. That's, you start going through this. So there's two pieces. She saw him. I'm looking for you. I'm waiting for you. He goes, oh, I see her. I'm going to wander down the street towards her house. So as I'm reading through this, I start playing back things, okay? And go, this sounds familiar. This sounds so familiar from friends that talk to her. Thought, oh yeah, I know this lady, and I'm going to go over and I'll go by her house. It sounds so familiar because one of these things is played out with friends. So in verse 14, she said, I have food from my fellowship offering at home. This meant that she had fresh meat for a meal, or that she was ceremonially clean. So now she's setting this thing up, okay? She looked for him. She already had his attention. He wandered down towards her house. Okay, so now we're set up here. Now she's totally trying to get things set up here for him. She said the next thing she does is to report her careful preparation. She's not poor, for she has a bed and it is ready. Now, okay, we have a young man. He's naive, he's gullible, he doesn't know. And here's this lady who's dressed provocatively, telling him all of these things and said, come on by.
Don't call her a lady.
Okay, don't call her a lady. But there's a setup, okay? There's two things here that's happening. You have someone who's older and experienced that knows what they want, and you have someone who has no idea of what they want other than they're young and they have hormones that are jumping up and down. Okay, so here we are, right? So we're getting this thing all set up and all laid out. So after she says these things, right, she says, she then directs her proposition in verse 18, said, come, let's drink deeply of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. So she done told this old boy, come on by. I got my bed is ready. I got it all laid out, and I got some food we can eat, and we can just go have a good time. Then she puts another piece onto this thing. Then she puts a whole nother wrapper on this thing. What does she tell him? She says that the final step is her disarming the reassurance. She explains that my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He gone. So I'm dressed up, I'm ready, I got a bed that's ready, I got food to eat, we can go have fun, and oh, by the way, don't worry about anything, because my husband ain't home. That's a setup. That is a setup, right? He has no idea, right? He has no idea. And him being a young man, his mind is totally not expecting what this is. He's just like, okay, this woman, she wants me. And there we go. So what would you expect to be the reaction here of this young man? So what would have been the reaction of the naive young man? What do you think his reaction was? What do you think his reaction was? Well, I think his reaction was this. Okay? I think that was his reaction. Because all of this being said, and he's like, oh, wow. Jackpot. That's kind of what he's thinking. You have this naive young man that has no idea of what he's about to get into, other than he's thinking, I'm going to go tell my friends what I did. A young man at that age with that thing, with that situation, is probably going to be just overly excited, not thinking about anything that's going to come after this. Doesn't think about the ramification. Don't think about any of the things that come after that, except for, he says, I'm hot, she wants me, here I go. Because that's pretty much what that is. Right? He doesn't have a clue. How many times has this played out? In talking with friends over the years, this has played out many times. This situation has played out many times. Because we don't think of the ramifications. We don't think of the thing that this is going to do. We're thinking that his mind is thinking totally in the physical realm. This is it. He's not thinking of anything outside of that. His thoughts are totally locked in on that. He can't see the forest for the trees. Right? So the father in this is trying to tell them of the situation that he's in, right? And of course, he tells them in the beginning of the verse, he says, my son, keep my words and store my commands within you. Keep my commands and you will live. Keep my commands and you will live. Now, he doesn't understand that part of that you will live, right? Because he doesn't see a danger here. He doesn't see the danger here because what has she done? She has set up everything. I got this ready, and the house is secure. You ain't got to worry about that. Just come on by, right? Father is suggesting that so that you can live. He said, guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablets of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and to insight, you are my relative. They will keep you from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words. Okay? In other words, don't go over there. Don't go do this. Because there is ramifications outside of this that you do not understand. So he's trying to alert him to this situation, right? So we can take a look at this in other situations, not just in the case of the harlot, or other things that we encounter in life, where someone more experienced say, hey, you may not want to do that. Here's what could be the situation, right? So this has other meanings behind it other than this situation with the harlot. Because there's times when we may enter into a situation that we've never been in before. someone else may have, and they go, hey, pump the brakes. You may need to hold back on this, right? Because there's things that you don't know. But again, the woman in this case, the harlot in this case, is definitely there to do one thing. She wants to seduce this young man. That's her thing. Sounds like this is something that she does repeatedly when her husband is away. She continues to do that, you know. So when she tells him, says, my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. So don't worry. The house is safe. We ain't got to worry about him coming. So come on by. The reactions of a gullible young man in that situation is going to do what? He is not thinking. He is not thinking. He is reacting, because that's the normal situation here. There's a reaction and not thinking. He's reacting to a situation that he's with. So we've heard this in the news over the last year and before, where there's been situations where there have been a teacher and a student, right, where they have been in sexual contact with each other, right, because there's a young man who has this lady who feels like, oh yeah, I like him, and the things get all set up, and next thing you know, they're there, right? Same situation, same thing. One puts themselves in harm's way, and that's what the young man is doing that he doesn't realize. He's putting himself in harm's way, and he has no idea that he is. For him, he would probably go back and tell his friends, guess what I did? Guess what I did? Right? There would be some boasting from him. Right? For her, it's going to be, oh, another young man, another conquest. I made another conquest. I've snared this one. The backside of this says, okay, and that's what the father was referencing. You know, don't do this so you can live. Don't do this so you can live. But when we look at our world today, there's a challenge that is faced, because now you have access to anything that you want to see on the internet. It's there, right? There's things when you look at young ladies when they go out, they are dressed very loosely, for lack of a better term. You walk down the aisles at a department store and you look at the ladies' clothing and you look at the men's clothing. The lady clothing seems to get more revealing every time. So now you've got to so somebody like this now has to deal with what he's seeing. You know, we're visible. We see things, right? And in this case, she dressed herself in a way to get that attention. She wanted that attention because her goal is to seduce. That's her goal. Her goal is to seduce and to bring someone into her bed to have her physical pleasure. Now, if we were to walk back and think back in your youth, was any of this, did you encounter anything similar to this? Where some woman had, oh, I like you. Those things come up. Those things happen. How do we stand against it? And in this case, this young man didn't have the wherewithal to know not to, which a lot of young men wouldn't. They fall prey to it. Because someone older thinks I'm all that in a bag of chips, and she wants to bring me into her bed. Right? So it would take someone with the wisdom and integrity of a Joseph to resist such an appeal. So we know the story of Joseph, right? Joseph had went into the house to do his daily things. And when he was in there, the wife wanted him to get in bed with her. He fled, he ran, but she grabbed his cloak. He left his cloak. He didn't want any part of that. He ran. You know, there's one of the old R&B songs that says, "Feet don't fail me now. Run fast." You know, a run, Forrest, run, he said in that movie. You got to get out of there. Get out of harm's way, right? That's what Joseph did. Joseph said, I don't want any part of this. I'm out of here, right? We know he left, his cloak was there because she grabbed it and left his cloak. And then when the master came back, she told him, hey, he was in here trying to do this to me, which wasn't. So it needed someone to do that because she's dressed herself in such a way and have presented herself in such a way that this young man needed that type of strength and that integrity to be able to get himself out of. Right? Using the similarities of an ox for the slaughter and a deer for the nose, the teacher warns of the complete ruin that can come to one guilty of allowing himself to be seduced. So if we go into verse 21 and 22, he said, with persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once, he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a house, till a narrow arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. It cost him his life. Right? No idea that this was going to happen. Right? So this sin could cost him his life. He needs to know this. He needs to know that it will cost him his life. And that's what it says in verse 23. It says, till an arrow pierces his liver like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. It will cost him his life. Now, in the sense of the young man here, he doesn't understand the part that it's going to cost him his life because he's thinking of a physical death, physical life that would be interrupted. The teacher here and the father here is talking about a spiritual death and a spiritual life that will be ruined. Is that difficult to tell somebody young in that situation? That's a difficult thing. That's something that they will kind of go, okay, but are they really listening to you? Do they really hear and understand what you mean when you say that? Probably not, because their mind is not there. Here in this case, we talk about a young man who was very naive, no knowledge of anything, basically. And here's some lady that's just basically giving herself out to him, not knowing the real ramifications of it. So he tells us that, we should be more afraid of the things that we cannot see than the things we can see, right? What Scripture tells us. So in this case, he's only thinking of the things he can see. He's not thinking about the things that he cannot see that can harm him. And that's what the Father keeps trying to reference. You can lose, this can cause you to lose your life. Because there's a deeper ramification than this that he is not seeing. He can't see that far. That's why I referenced that, it takes someone with the integrity of a Joseph to resist something like that. Which is very challenging. Okay, in verse 24 through 27, he said, now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. So here's where this road ends. So basically, he's painting a picture and said, okay, if you do this, here's where this road can take you. This road can take you right here. It's going to take you here because this is where her house, this is where it leads you. He says, many are the victims she has brought down. So meaning she's been doing this quite a bit. Many are the victims she had brought down because this is something that she's good at. She's obviously doing this and really good at it, right? Her slain are as a mighty thorn. Her house is a highway to the grave. Her house is a highway to the grave. So if you enter into this, this is where this can lead you, right? This grave is not what we thinking physically here, but that's not the case. He said leading down to the chambers of death. So this will lead him down a path and can lead him to a place where it will be spiritual death. So the sin that he will encounter here can lead him down to that path. So the teacher warns his son to stay away from the seductive path because consorting with her will also lead him to death, right? It will lead him there. It can lead him to death. He stresses that she has been the death of many, and their house is a way that leads to the chambers of death. Her house is not the grave, but it is surely the way to it. It is surely the way to it. Get entangled. We can get entangled with things. This is an entanglement that this young man is about to get into. Now, if she's done this many times, this is another conquest for her again. Also, the young man, he's too gullible to know anything, so he may just say, oh, this is good, I'm gonna go back again. But it leads to a path of destruction, and it can lead to a path of death.
I see it as it also can be not just spiritual, but physically. I looked up. They said even back in Babylon and some of the other places, they were aware of the STDs,
Mm-hmm.
and back then they didn't have treatment, so you died.
Right.
So this can also seems like speak literally as well.
Yep. So there are definitely other things that can happen with that. Exactly. So we see this, and it is something that, today, like I said, we have ways to prevent those things now. They, have medications that can help with those type of things, but there's still the other ramification, right? There's still the other ramification, and that begins to, where it really, as the old saying, where the rubber really meets the road, is where this will end up at. Where this will end up at, right? A man's life is not destroyed in one instance. It's not destroyed in one instance, right? It takes from him, it's taken from him gradually as he enters into a course of life that will lead him as another victim of the wages of sin. It's not instant. He's not destroyed instantly. Over a period of time, if this continues, what happens? There's a consequence over that period of time if this continues. It will lead not only to be, as Barbara mentioned, it could lead to, physical situations, physical issues. But then the deeper thing is, it is going to be something that will impact them spiritually. It will put him in a place that he doesn't want to be. It'll put him in a place that he doesn't want to be. So this is a stark reminder of the things that we can get entrapped in. When you're younger, you don't see those. as you mature, these things can kind of do a little bit better with them. But as gullible young men, we don't always see that. When I was in middle school, we had a 7th grade teacher, Miss Brumfield. And boy, Miss Brumfield was a looker. She was a nice looking lady. And needless to say, back then, Miss Brumfield wore skirts that were short. She was hot. That's what we said. Boy, she's hot. Miss Brumfield is hot. She was. And of course, one of the guys definitely tried to make his way there. So again, you had a old lady who was very attractive, very good looking, and the guy go, man, I see I can do something there. And he tried. All right? That's what this guy's dealing with. Young men, we are gullible. We just don't have the strength to withstand things. When it's presented to us in this manner, most young men cannot walk away from it. They don't.
You know, it's not just young men. And it's not just gullible men, and it's not just men.
Right.
Right? I think one of the things that Solomon paints a picture here, this is a prevalent problem. Many, and if you look at it metaphorically,
Yeah.
many have fallen into this trap. And while I've got the floor, I think the key verse is actually maybe verse 25, when he tells the young man, do not stray into her path.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That the best way to avoid getting caught in something like that, don't walk by that house to start with.
Exactly.
And everybody else probably knew where that house was. Whether or not this man was naive or not, we don't really know.
Right.
The NIV translates that he lacked judgment. That's
Yeah.
a little different, right?
Yeah.
That you may have known right or wrong, just chosen, or just been curious or whatever, and you strayed into the path where you shouldn't have been. And I think that's the message I get out of this
Yeah.
text, right?
Mhm.
The other thing that Solomon does here that I think is beautiful is he really paints just how alluring the sin is, right? He really paints a picture of just how hard it would be to resist
Right.
that
Mhm.
situation, and that's the reality of it, right? It's a difficult thing to resist. That's why the best path is to avoid
He's a boy.
to the extent that you can.
I think this has, as you alluded to earlier, much wider application to all of the things that we come in contact with over our life. And some of them we fall to, and many of them hopefully we don't. But any of them can, over time, lead us away from eternal life.
Yeah.
Talked about there. It's just so prevalent. Traps, things that act as adulterers in our life today that we see. Seems like it's more and more all the time. I think this has it may not have the author of this particular proverb may not have indicated that, but I think it has much broader application. You alluded to that earlier.
Yep. It does. Yes, go with Mary.
I think we should have invited the teenagers in here for this class.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an alluring thing, and Kevin, appreciate your comments there, because you're exactly the same, because not only, this talks about the harlot woman, but there's also the harlot man. This can go both ways. And again, totally agree with you. It is just not naive young men, or gullible young men that falls into this. It's not just them. It is experienced older people that actually still fall into the same situation, the same trap. Because, one of the things that he asked us to do against is the lust of the flesh. There it is. There's the lust of the flesh. It's there. It's right in front of them. They laid it all out there. And it is very difficult on either side to deal with that. So having the wherewithal and the strength and having the mind put in the right place is the way to avoid this. Like say, don't go down to the street towards your house if you know that's what's going on down there. What's the old analogy? You don't play in the fire, you won't get burned. Well, don't go down the street there. You know if it's there, don't go down there. Don't do that. Don't get and put yourself in a situation you know what's already there. If you do, there's consequences, right? And that's just not with, you know, this situation. That's with many other things. It's much broader. It's much broader with different things. If you know that there's something that you're going to walk, that you're about to get into, and you know what it's about, why go there? Why do it? Because if you do, there's ramifications. Some may be more physical pain. Some may have spiritual consequences to them. But we have to remember to elude those things if we know. Don't walk into them. You know, don't walk into a burning house, because if you walk into a burning house, guess what? You're going to get burned up if you walk in there. You know, you grab the hot iron, it's going to burn your hand. If you know what's there, don't do it. And the father's telling the son here in this story, don't go there, don't do this, because this is what's going to be the ramifications. So that's our lesson for this morning. Thank everybody for your time this morning, your comments, and we'll call it done. Thank you. Okay.
Hey, Charles. You know, the problem with young people is they're immortal in their mind.
Never mind.